This content is not suitable for children and may contain depictions of violence.
Hi, I'm your host Cambo. Grab a beer and pull up a deck chair. This is True Crime Island, another true crime podcast. Hi Islanders, I hope you're all well. This week we have another serial killer case. Chilling, and that he was never suspected of being a serial killer until he decided to tell investigators. So tonight we go to Anchorage in Alaska, where a missing persons case would turn out to be so much more. The case tonight, of course, is the shocking story of Israel Keys. Now, my references are the Republic, Indiana, the Daily Sentinel, Colorado, Whitehorse Daily Star, Canada, the Burlington Free Press, the Greenville News, South Carolina, the FBI, biography.com, Anchorage Daily News, splcenter.org, the audiobook American Predator by Maureen Callahan, and CCTV footage from Common Grounds. But first, a word from my sponsor. Roses are red, violets are blue. Get Manscaped as a gift for V-Day and he'll say, I love you. Our friends at Manscaped, the global leaders in men's below-the-waist grooming, are here to give you the perfect gift for the men in your life. Now, maybe it's a bit too much information, but I do like to keep the boys trimmed, just like 2 million other Manscaped customers. And you should make sure your man does too. And for those that like to keep the bush around the playground trimmed, I'm sure you've been caught like I have, getting ready for a bit of fun, but the scrub down there is a little bit overgrown. But never again. With the Perfect Package 3, you'll get their revolutionary 3rd generation Lawnmower 3 trimmer, which has advanced skin-safe technology and features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents. And it really works. It's even got a little light on it so you can see where you're going. It's also waterproof, so you can just wash away all that fluff straight down the drain. And let's be real, we smelt the worst down there before. That's why I'm thankful for their Crop Preserver and Crop Reviver. These products keep the boys from sweating, smelling, and stinking. Stinking, yeah. And these products, they smell good. Their manly scent is attractive and will set the mood and keep things spicy whenever the night takes you. Much better than vinegar balls. Now, these formulations are all vegan, cruelty-free, dye-free, sulfate-free and paraben-free. So you know his manhood is going to be in good hands and in other places as well. The Perfect Package 3 will also come with a pair of Manscaped boxer briefs that will keep his junk feeling fresh all day. It's time to upgrade those old boxers. These ones are really comfy. No more nundies for me falling down. Instead of a box of chocolates, that's a crap gift. Get him a box of the best products for his male grooming needs to spice up your Valentine's Day. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code CAMBO at manscaped.com. Ladies, this is the perfect gift for you and your man. And trust me, he will thank you. And men, your balls will thank you. I know, they're thanking me right now. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code CAMBO at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use the code CAMBO. Happy Valentine's Day from me and thank you, Manscaped. So let's get stuck straight into it now. We go to Anchorage. It's February 2012. Now, Anchorage is Alaska's largest city. It's in the south central part of the state on the Cook Inlet. About 40% of Alaska's population live in Anchorage, and in 2012, that population was about 293,000 people. It's here that 18-year-old, 5'5", 140 pounds, brown-haired Samantha Koenig lived and worked. She did shifts at a coffee hut called Common Grounds, situated in a parking lot on East Tudor Road and Gamble Street, and that's somewhere around the middle of the city. She was popular at school. I mean, Like all of us probably did, she did skip school occasionally, and she did like to party. But all young people do. Samantha got along with everyone very well. She was in her senior year at Anchorage West High School and wanted to work with animals, maybe becoming a vet or to become a nurse and join the Navy. Samantha had worked at the Common Grounds Coffee Hut for less than a month and was doing the 1 to 8 p.m. shift. On the 1st of February 2012, Samantha started work as normal at 1 p.m. The weather was bleak and it was snowing. The Common Grounds Coffee Hut was on the northeast corner of the large parking lot, and on the two sides facing the roads, there was about almost a 5-foot high snowbank. Samantha had messaged her father James to ask him to bring her some dinner that night, but he either didn't get the message or he didn't turn up. Her boyfriend Dwayne had her pick up that night and was working down the road. Dwayne Tortolani II had been in a relationship with Samantha for about a year. He moved into the house Samantha and her father shared for about 8 months previously. Dwayne worked as a dishwasher at Suite 100, situated at 1000 East Diamond Boulevard, and that's about 10 minutes drive down the road from the coffee hut. He worked hard to save for a future with Samantha, but with all relationships, they had their ups and downs, but things were pretty good at the time. As I said before, he had Samantha's pickup and had organised to get Samantha from work after his shift finished. Now, Dwayne finished a little bit later than normal and turned up at the Common Grounds Coffee Hut at around 8:30 p.m. Now, when he got there, he saw that the lights were off. He looked in and saw napkins on the ground and towels on the countertop. He thought this was a little bit odd, as Samantha was a bit of a clean freak. Now, thinking she'd gone off with friends because he was late, he left and he went home. Now, when Dwayne got back to the house, James, her dad, seeing that Samantha wasn't back, called her phone, but it rang out and went to voicemail. Eventually, both of them went to bed with the thought that Samantha probably went out with her friends, probably a bit pissed off and wasn't answering her phone. At 11:30 p.m, Dwayne got a text message from Samantha. It read, "Fuck you, asshole. I know what you did, and I'm going to stay a couple of nights with friends. Need time to think, plan, acting weird. Let my dad know." Now, later he would get another message saying she was going away. Now, to Dwayne, this just didn't sit right with him. It just didn't seem to be written in the style that she normally tells him off. At 3 a.m. in the morning, Dwayne, for no real reason, he says, he gets up, he goes out the front of the house and he sees a guy in a hoodie with a mask on going through Samantha's pickup. Now, they both stared at each other for a second, and then Dwayne went inside to get James, probably as some sort of backup, but by the time they both got out the front, the guy had left. They didn't really make much of it and they went back to sleep. Now, Dwayne wouldn't wake up until 9:30 the next morning. Samantha would be reported missing, though, by the first barista to start work in the morning, as she thought things didn't seem right, as Samantha was meticulous in closing the shop properly. But the kiosk seemed like things were out of place, with napkins on the floor and towels on the bench top. Also, the takings from the night before were gone. Now, the police didn't take this report very seriously. They were thinking Samantha probably took the takings for a couple of days' fun. She'd be back when the money ran out. Now, Police Detective Monique Dole, she was assigned to the case by her boss, as he thought it'd be a good rundown test for her, as it was her first day in her new role in homicide. This wasn't a homicide at the time. She'd just joined that squad, and her boss just thought, oh, I'll give her a run on this apparent missing person. Now, being a small city, everyone seems to know everyone, especially in law enforcement. Now, FBI Special Agent Steve Payne, he heard about this on the radio and called to help out. But that help was declined. You see, police had already formed the view that Samantha had just run off for a couple of days. There was no big deal. But Payne felt uneasy about the case. What he knew was that this young girl, and he considered her a child even at 18 years of age, she just walked off in freezing weather, alone, and had stolen the coffee shop's takings, which was really only a couple of $100. She was nowhere to be found. She wasn't with her friends, and she hadn't planned to go anywhere with anyone. Samantha's father, James, he went to the kiosk. He waited there all day from 1 p.m. until closing time, hoping she'd just come back. Now, Special Agent Payne, he thought it was strange that the Common Grounds coffee hut hadn't been taped off by police and thoroughly examined. In fact, they were trading as usual, and so if it were to be a crime scene, then it was surely contaminated by this stage. Now, he left calls with the police all through the day, but these went unanswered. That was until 8 p.m. when he got a call from Detective Dole asking him to come and look at some surveillance footage from the coffee hut. What police had thought of was just a runaway petty theft case. It was now taking a turn for the worse. The owner of the coffee grounds, he was about 2,500 miles away, that's about 4,000 kilometres, and it had taken 8 hours for him to get the surveillance footage to police. There were 4 cameras, 2 outside the hut and 2 inside. Let's have a little look at the footage now.
So here you see Sarah at the kiosk getting ready to close up the shop. She's just cleaning a few things up, getting it ready. Now in the bottom left you can see a shadowy figure walking across the snowy car park. And Sarah is totally unaware of what's about to happen. Now you can see she's got the customer at the window. She's taking the order. And now she's making the coffee. Everything's normal at this stage. You can see in the background there's plenty of cars in the car park. There's plenty of cars on the boulevard. And of course there are snowbanks that are slightly around both sides of the kiosk. So it's quite hard to see it from the boulevard. Now she's just about got the coffee ready. Just asking if you want milk or whatever. So she hands the coffee. She's just looking around. When she turns back, she's just, oops, and he's pulled the gun on her. He's told her to turn the lights off. Now I think she's checking all the outside lights are off. Now she's going to the till to get the takings. He's about 6'2", so he's quite a large bloke. And he will eventually jump in the serving window. He's told Samantha now to get on her knees and crouch down. Now he's getting in the window. And you can see how tall he is, even though it is quite dark. Now what he's going to do here is bind her hands behind her back with cable ties. Now, I have cut a lot of this out. The clip goes for 11 minutes. This one goes for about 5 minutes we've got here. And that he just takes a lot of time. He's quite patient. He's not stressed. There's people driving around out the front in the car park, coming and going. But he's totally calm. He's what I would say he's in control. Now, they're going towards the back door of the kiosk now. I think he's checking the till to make sure there's no extra money in there. And there was only a couple of $100 of takings. Now they're going out the back door. You can see in the bottom right screen the door opening. There's Sarah's face. Wonder what she's thinking at this point. And he's telling her as long as she does exactly what he says, she'll be fine. And there you can see they're walking off towards where his car was parked. Absolutely terrifying.
Now, as I said, I cut that down to about 5 or so minutes. The actual abduction in the footage takes more than 11 minutes, and this is out in the front car park along the side of a busy multi-lane boulevard. Yes, it's sort of somewhat obscured by the snowbank on the corners, but there's plenty of cars in the car park, and anyone could have seen what was going on, or Samantha could have just screamed for help. This was an absolutely brazen act. Another security camera would show Samantha break free from the man and try to run off, but she's quickly caught and taken back to what looks like the abductor's pickup. And at the same time, the couple are seen walking back to their pickup close by. They enter it and drive off. Now, Samantha doesn't scream for help. Probably she fears for her life with a gun held to her. Now, this truck looks like a white Chevy pickup, probably one of the most popular trucks in Alaska, and probably the most popular colour. Police collated a list of white Chevy pickups and went to interview the owners. Now, one place they door knocked was 2456 Spur Lane. Now, it was a blue two-storey pine board house with a shed out the front. Now, when they knocked, no one answered. They checked out the pickup truck. Look, it had racks and toolboxes along the side, and the racks, they looked sort of permanent, welded on. And the pickup they were looking for didn't have these long toolboxes or racks. Now, nothing else looked suspicious, so they just moved on to the next place on the list. They had about 750 to check out. Police at this stage kept the abduction out of the media. They still thought there was something sus about it. They thought it may have even been staged by Samantha as some sort of stunt. Now, they decided to front up unannounced to Samantha's place, the place she shared with her father and boyfriend. Now, when they knocked, her father James came to the door, but he wouldn't let him in. Instead, he opened the door just enough to get out, and he closed it behind him. Single father James, or Sonny as he was known, he was what people might say is a bit of a bad boy, hanging around biker bars, maybe doing some drugs, but Samantha was his world and he would do anything for her. Now, he told police he had no idea where she was and that she had sent him a text message during the day to see if he would take a dinner that night, but he hadn't. Now, when they asked to speak to Dwayne, he did the same sort of thing. He opened the door just enough to get out and then closed it behind him. I don't know, maybe they were smoking pot, I don't know, I have no idea. They asked Dwayne what happened that night. He told them how he was late picking her up. She wasn't there, the lights were off, and it looked a bit messy, unlike the way Samantha would leave it, her being a clean freak. He then drove home and he got a text message saying she wouldn't be back. That was later in the night. Then he told him how he saw a guy at 3 a.m. going through Samantha's pickup, but by the time he went to get James as a backup from in the house and confront the guy, this guy had run off, and so he just went back to bed. When asked why he didn't call police and report Samantha missing, he told them that she'd only been gone a few hours and police wouldn't do anything about it, which pretty much was true. The same with the guy looking through the pickup. He thought police wouldn't care, so he just didn't call. He did tell them, though, that he noticed Samantha's licence missing from the pickup as she normally left it in the sun visor. Now, this all still seems suspect to police. It's just the way they were acting. They would end up putting 24-hour surveillance on James Koenig in the hope that they might just find out what was going on. Samantha had vanished and her father and boyfriend were both acting a little bit weird. But James Koenig, he was acting anything but weird. He got flyers printed and he would set himself up at the Common Grounds coffee hut every day handing them out. He organised her friends to go around giving out flyers. He even made a Facebook page trying to get the message out for people to look for his daughter. In his eyes, he was doing more than the police. Now, this forced the police to release details of Samantha's vanishing to the media, and the story went national. Reporters were now interviewing James, and he was keen to talk with them. I mean, he didn't look sus like some people when they have a press conference. You see, they look guilty as hell. This guy was genuinely concerned, where is his daughter? It was pretty obvious by this time that Samantha hadn't staged anything. Anchorage was too small of a place for no one to know where she was if she was just hiding out. But who was this guy in the CCTV footage? Where had he taken Samantha? And was she still alive? Then on February the 24th, 2012 at 7:45 p.m, Dwayne got a shock. There was a message from Samantha's phone and it read, "Connor Park sign under pic of Albert. Ain't she purty?" Dwayne and James raced to Connor Bog Park, and on a notice board they see a missing poster for a dog called Albert. Below it was a Ziploc bag pinned to the sign. Inside the bag, amongst other things, is a Xerox copy of a Polaroid photo. Depicted in the photo is a girl. Her head looked like it was being held by a man. Her mouth looked like it was taped, and next to her is the picture of a newspaper. It was the Anchorage Daily News, dated February the 13th, 2012. Now remember, Samantha went missing on the 1st. There's also a ransom note in this bag. Now the note referenced Dwayne and Samantha's ATM card, which had also gone missing along with her licence. It stated he wouldn't use it yet, but later, when he was out of the state, he planned on using it. The note told how Samantha nearly escaped twice, and he indicated that he was starting to lose his touch. He also demanded $30,000 to be deposited into Samantha's bank account for a safe return in 6 months' time. A little bit crazy, but 6 months' time. James wasn't 100% sure the girl was Samantha, but it just didn't look right. The girl in the photo had braided hair and Samantha had hers straight. But James then he sort of had to admit it was his daughter, it was Samantha. Now, police had a huge lead. Although James and Dwayne didn't have $30,000, the public had already raised tens of thousands of dollars as a reward for information on Samantha's whereabouts. Police thought this would be a great way to try and track down this guy via ATM withdrawals. They deposited $5,000 into the account at first just to see what would happen. Then on March the 1st, 2012, the bank alerted that Samantha Koenig's debit card had been used in an ATM withdrawal in Anchorage. By the time police arrived, though, there was no one around and security cam footage was of no use either. Then on March the 7th, 2012, Samantha's debit card was used to make an ATM withdrawal at Wilcox, Arizona. So now the perpetrator had left Alaska and was in Arizona. This time the security camera didn't get a clear image of his face, but it did get the car he was driving in the photo. It was a white Ford Focus. Now he only withdrew $400 here, and the card had a daily limit of $500. So only a short time later, as the clock ticked over past 12, March the 8th, he tried getting another large sum from the card in Lordsburg, New Mexico. But Samantha's card was linked to the time in Alaska, and he was in another time zone, so he was only able to get $100 more to make up that $500 daily limit. Again, police raced to the ATM, but the perp was gone, and there were no usable photos. On March the 8th, Samantha's card was used to make an ATM withdrawal at Shepherd, Texas. Again, the perp was gone by the time police arrived, but now they saw that he was travelling east, and so they got themselves ready east of Shepherd, Texas, putting out a bolo for a white Ford Focus. Then on March the 10th, there was another use of Samantha's debit card, but this time at Humble, Texas. Now, he's still in the area, but this is backtracking a little bit back from Shepherd to Humble. Then on March the 13th, 2012, an alert patrolman noticed a white Ford Focus with out-of-state plates in Lufkin, Texas. He followed it, hoping the driver would make any mistake that would cause him to be pulled over. Then the driver went over the speed limit by just a few miles an hour, and the patrolman pulled him over in the parking lot of the Cotton Patch Cafe. Inside the car was Israel Keys. Also in the car was Samantha's debit card and mobile phone. Keys was arrested. Now, it was lucky he was noticed at all, because this white Ford Focus, he'd been photographed in the original ATM photo at Wilcox. That had actually broken down. Now, when he returned the car, they gave him an identical white Ford Focus. They didn't give him a shitbox Kia or shitbox Toyota Corolla. They didn't even give him a different colour Focus. Now, if they had done that, he may never have been caught. He wouldn't have been noticed. He was initially charged with access device fraud because he made withdrawals using Samantha's debit card. Now, his house in Spur Street, Anchorage, was searched and his white Chevy pickup was seized. This was the one I mentioned before that had the racks and toolboxes on it, so police ended up dismissing it as they were looking for one without any add-ons. Well, he'd actually put all this stuff back on. He'd taken it off just to do this crime, the abduction, and he put it all back on again when he got home. Now, Samantha wasn't with Keys when he was arrested, and she wasn't located on his property in Alaska, where he lived with his girlfriend and daughter from a previous marriage. So where was Samantha? Now, it wouldn't be too long before the story came out. It wouldn't be good news for James Koenig and Dwayne Tortolani II. So who was this Israel Keys character? He was born on January the 7th, 1978 at Cove, Utah in the USA. His family lived a reclusive lifestyle and he would become one of 10 children. Their family were originally Mormons, but then when they moved to a cabin in Colville, Washington, which by the way had no running water or electricity, they changed to a radical faith, the Ark Church, which was a racist and anti-Semitic Christian identity religion. The kids were homeschooled and this limited his social skills. He tortured animals and he thought it was funny. He would stalk his neighbours, break into their homes and steal their guns. Like I said, he had no real social skills and he made people feel awkward. The Keys family were neighbours and friends with the Kehoe family, who lived just down the road. The Kehoe sons, white supremacists Chevy and Shane, are in prison for a deadly crime spree they went on in the name of their Aryan Republic Army, including Chevy Kehoe's January 1996 murders of gun dealer William Muller, his wife Nancy, and their 8-year-old daughter Sarah Powell. Keys renounced his faith when he was in his mid-teens and may have even taken up Satanism. At 6'2", Keys served in the US Army from 1998 through to 2001 at Fort Lewis, Fort Hood and in Egypt. He seemed to do well there. He liked the discipline and left with an honourable discharge. Keys read the book Mindhunter, Inside the FBI's Elite Serial Crime Unit, which is a 1995 non-fiction crime book written by retired FBI agent John E. Douglas and his co-author Mark Olshaker. Now, this would go on to become that Netflix series, which I'm sure you've all watched. Keys started to read about serial killers and how they went about their ways. He married, had a daughter, but then left and got a girlfriend. He would end up moving to Alaska with his girlfriend, and he took his daughter with him. He would go on to run his own business, Keys Construction, and settle in Anchorage. Now, you can go online and watch a few of the FBI interrogations of Keys, but you're not really going to get much out of it for the amount of hours you have to watch. Now, I haven't been able to find just the audio ones, or else I've put some audio snippets in. They seem more interesting. But I do have the main contents here that I'll go through now. Now, Keys is extradited to Alaska, and it's here that during interrogations with police and FBI, that Keys, he sort of got this attitude that he holds all the power and that he is in control. So the basic rundown of his interviews show Keys toying with police to try and get what he wants, sort of thing. He wants to trade information about his crimes in exchange for keeping the story out of the media to protect his daughter. He wants a quick trial, and he also wants the death penalty. He just doesn't want to be in prison for years. He also wants Starbucks Americana coffee, Snickers, and cigars. Now, during interviews, he will tell police what he did with Samantha Koenig. He will confess to killing another couple. He will also hint at various other murders, but he won't tell investigators exact names or places. He plays this game over a period of months, just hinting at things. Now, he does tell investigators that when they interview his family, friends, or workmates, they will hear of a different person than the person he really is, and that he is two people and only he knows his real self. Okay, so the story of what happened to Samantha comes out. He had been stalking the Common Grounds coffee hut as well as other coffee huts all over Anchorage. He would do this sort of recon for most of his crimes. Now, some say that he planned his crimes out with military precision from the training that he received in the military, but really that's not the case. Yes, he did plan, he cased out locations, he even hid kill kits around the US mainland, and we're going to get to that a little bit later. But it does look like he sussed out the Common Grounds coffee hut to some extent. He noticed that it was isolated, that there would be one woman working there. The place would close at 8 p.m, and in the winter there are large snowbanks that would probably obscure most of the hut's view from the busy road. On the night of February the 1st, 2012, he'd already taken the racks and toolboxes off his white Chevy pickup, and he parked across the road from the Common Grounds coffee hut in the parking lot between the IHOP restaurant and Dairy Queen. It was approaching 8 p.m. Now, Keys didn't know Samantha Koenig. He had no grudge against her. She was just in the right location for him at the right time. Keys carried a portable police scanner with an earpiece, so he knew the police at the time were responding to an emergency on the other side of Anchorage. He approached the counter and ordered a coffee. As seen in the CCTV footage, Samantha made the coffee, then she was taken back as Keys pulled a gun on her. As we saw in the footage, she turns off the lights, she gets the money from the till. He'd then jump into the hut via that big large serving window. He'd bind Samantha's hands behind her back with these cable ties. He'd walk her out the door and force her at gunpoint in the direction of his pickup. Now, Samantha tried to run off, but he caught her. They walked across Tudor Road into the parking lot, like I said, between the IHOP restaurant and the Dairy Queen. This is where Keys had parked his pickup. Now, a couple walked close by and got in their car. Samantha, frozen with fear, with a gun pointed at her, she just didn't scream for help. Keys had told her to do as he said, and then she'd be okay. He just wanted a ransom. He then drove to his home in Spur Street. Here, he gagged her, put her in a shed in the driveway. He turned up the music in the shed and then went inside and sat with his family. He then realised that Samantha's phone was still at the coffee hut and that he'd dropped some of the cable ties there as well. Also, Samantha's ATM card was in her pickup that Dwayne had taken to work with him. His plan to hold her for ransom required her ATM card and her phone. CCTV footage would show her phone lighting up as her father tried to call her on that night. He went back to the coffee hut to get the cable ties he dropped and Samantha's phone. He would also go to her home at 3 a.m. to get her ATM card that was in the pickup. Now, Keys was the guy Dwayne had busted going through her pickup. Now he had her ATM card and her phone. He raped, stabbed, and strangled Samantha and left her for dead in a box in a shed in his driveway. That morning, the 2nd of February, he took his girlfriend and daughter, flew with them to Houston, Texas. They rented a car from Thrifty, a 2011 Kia shitbox, which they would rack up 2,847 miles. They stayed at America's Best Value Inn in Lafayette, Louisiana. Between February the 6th and 11th, they went on a Carnival Cruise Line trip, and it was a round trip from New Orleans. On February the 16th, Keys robbed the National Bank of Texas in Azle. Is that how you say it? A-Z-L-E, Texas. Probably to fund this holiday he was on. Then they all returned to Anchorage. When he got back, he noticed Samantha's body was starting to smell, even though she was frozen solid. He thawed her out, and then he enacted the next part of his plan. Now, remember that photo he took with Samantha, mouth covered in tape, with the Alaska Daily News from February the 13th, and the ransom note? Well, that was staged. Samantha had been dead just hours after her abduction. Keys, after thawing her out, sewed open her eyes, taped her mouth as it would stay in a natural position, and held her head up. He Xeroxed the Polaroids as her skin tone had changed. He knew from public donations that he could ask for a ransom note for at least $30,000, and his terms were that she would be released in 6 months' time. Plenty of time to spend the money or some crime spree that he had planned in the mainland of US. Keys dismembered Samantha's body and dumped her remains in the deepest area of Matansuka Lake near Palmer, Alaska. I'll get these words out. He cut a hole in the ice to fish. Now, he would drop body parts down the hole. Then on February the 24th, Keys posted that ransom note for Samantha Koenig at Connors Bog Park, Anchorage in Alaska. The FBI would eventually find Samantha's body parts in Matansuka Lake, where Keys had told them to look. Now, that's not all he's going to tell them. He then told them about a couple he abducted and murdered, Bill and Lorraine Courier of 8 Colbert Street, Essex, Vermont. He'd cased them out a little bit during a trip in June of 2011. He had flown to Chicago from Anchorage on June the 2nd, 2011. He hired a car from Hertz. On June the 3rd, he made his way towards Essex, Vermont, picking up one of his kill kits on the way. This kill kit he'd stashed by the Winooski River in 2009. Now, these kill kits were 5-gallon buckets filled with guns, ammo, cable ties, knives, and whatever he needed to commit his crimes. He hid these kits in isolated areas close to where he needed them. Now, these kits would mean he didn't waste time gathering his gear before a crime and lessened his chances of getting caught. This would be one of his MOs. Commit a crime a long way from home, use gear that had been purchased a long time before committing the crime, and this was distancing himself from these crimes, and it was his way of evading justice. On June the 8th, Keys would approach Bill and Lorraine Courier's home. He knew they had no dog and no alarm. The Couriers had moved to the area because it was a safe and quiet community. Keys cut their phone lines and electricity after they turned the lights off and went to bed. He found a crowbar in which he smashed a window and blitz attacked the Couriers, rushing into their bedroom within seconds of entering their home. He cable-tied them and quizzed them over money and guns. He was able to take Lorraine's gun and he forced them into their car and drove them around 10 minutes away to an abandoned farmhouse at 32 Upper Main Street, Essex Junction. Keys took Bill Courier into the basement of the farmhouse and he tied him to a stool. Then he went back to the car and saw that Lorraine had broken free from the zip ties and that she was running towards Main Street. He ran after her and tackled her. Then he took her back to the farmhouse and bound both her hands and feet again. Keys then went to the basement to find Bill had broken the stool which he'd been bound to and was shouting, "Where's my wife?" Keys tried to shut him up by hitting him with a shovel, but when he saw that this wouldn't work, he got out his gun, fitted with a homemade silencer, and shot Bill in the head. Keys then raped Lorraine, strangling her until she lost consciousness. Keys then took Lorraine to his basement and strangled her to death. He put their bodies in separate garbage bags in one corner of the basement and covered them up with whatever was lying around. Keys then left the farmhouse in the courier's car and left it in the Lowe's parking lot on Susie Wilson Road. He then drove his rental car to Maine. On his way back to Vermont, he burned the property he had stolen from the couriers. The handgun he kept, but later threw it and his own with the silencer into a reservoir in Parishville, New York. The couriers' bodies have never been recovered as the farmhouse had been demolished by the time investigators were told of their murders by Keys. You see, these people were missing people for so long. They had no idea that Keys had anything to do with it or they'd been murdered. They're just missing people. They did try to locate remains from where the demolition rubble was dumped, but they found nothing. However, both guns were later recovered by FBI dive teams. Now, Keys robbed the community bank branch in Tupper Lake, New York in April of 2009. It's while he was committing this robbery that he procured the sexual services of Deborah Feldman, who lived in Hackensack, New Jersey. Now, she disappeared on April the 9th and her body has never been found. FBI believe he committed this crime because he reacted when shown photos of missing persons. Keys claimed to have killed a woman in April of 2009 in New Jersey, and he said he buried her near Tupper Lake in upstate New York. So investigators are assuming that it was Deborah Feldman. The FBI were able to find a couple of the kill kits, and in one they found a thumbprint on a round which matched Keys. Now, when Keys found out about this thumbprint, he was pretty pissed off with himself just to make such a rookie error. In reality, he made lots of errors. Going after Samantha Koenig so close to home was a huge error, especially how he made it a rule to commit crimes far away from where he lived. His rule was to attack those who happened to be in a certain place at a certain time. Look, he had no real type, which meant his kills were never really linked. Now, during his run before he got captured, he made the mistake of having his car captured in the security footage. Then when it broke down later that day, they replaced it with an identical model of the same colour. Now, for Keys, I guess that was just bad luck. Keys would tell FBI vague details of other murders, and they reckon he certainly did 4, but could be responsible for 11 or more. We'll never know because he killed himself while being held at Anchorage Correctional Complex on December the 2nd, 2012. He was able to get a sharp object into his room, cut his wrists, and he hung himself. Beneath his bed were pictures of 11 skulls and 1 goat's head created in his own blood. Now, FBI think these represent 11 victims, but in reality, who knows? There was also a note, which is just rambling garbage. It is online if you want to read it. Check out oxygen.com. They've got a transcription of it. You don't have to read his messy writing. Now, I will leave you with one of his quotes when he was being interrogated by the FBI. This one is on YouTube. He says, "My concern is that the problem is, nowadays, more stuff my name is attached to, the more likely someone's going to try and do some kind of stupid TV special. You know how it is nowadays with all this true crime bullshit." There you go, some true crime bullshit. What a dickhead he is. I mean, trying to keep it out of the media, as if you could keep it out of the media. He shouldn't have done it if he didn't want it in the media. Well, there you go, Islanders. What a strange and horrifying case. With Samantha's murder, I mean, you've got to think, what if Dwayne had been on time to pick up Samantha? I mean, did Keys originally plan to take both of them, and that's why he took so long hanging around to take her? And then he sort of decided he'd better just take Samantha rather than wait any longer. And what if Dwayne had grabbed Keys at 3 a.m. when he was going through Samantha's pickup? Like, there's so many ifs and buts on this case. Thankfully, Keys was caught and isn't active today because authorities had no idea there was a serial killer out there until Keys started confessing to these other crimes. I mean, what was going through his mind? We probably don't know. He did get off on the power trip during the crimes and during his interrogation. With the way he planned the crimes during his residence in Alaska, flying to the mainland United States, planning kill kits to retrieve later, flying out after committing his crimes, like he could have gone on like this for decades. So why did he shit in his own backyard and take Samantha? Did he want to get caught? Well, I guess we're never going to know. But how about you leave your comments below on what you think? Now, before I go, a big shout out to all my patrons. If you want to support the island, there are links in the description for Patreon, PayPal and merch. Please feel free to comment, like, subscribe, and I would truly appreciate if you share the channel. Hit the bell to be notified. Well, that's about it, and I'm not running ads all the time. That was just a one-off-ish thing. I've been your host, Cambo. You've been watching True Crime Island, and as I always say, don't forget to delete your browser history. Good night. Boom fuckalunda.